Hater. Ever wondered why minibus taxis are everywhere in South Africa? While other countries have underground metros and efficient bus networks, we have these 16-seater vehicles ruling our roads. They're chaotic, controversial, and absolutely essential. But why do these taxis transport 15 million South Africans every day when most developed countries rely on government transport systems? In this video, we will explore the history of South Africa's taxi system, how it operates, and why many taxi drivers drive recklessly. South Africa's public transport system stands as a global anomaly. While most countries have government-run systems as their backbone, our privately owned minibus taxi industry transports about 65% of all commuters daily. That's roughly 15 million people using a transport system that developed largely without formal planning or regulation. Consider this. In Japan, 72% of commuters use trains. In London, the underground moves 5 million people daily. But in Johannesburg, Metrorail serves less than 10% of commuters, while taxis handle the bulk of movement. Let us break down why taxis continue to dominate. Let us first consider historical roots. During apartheid, Black South Africans were forced to live in townships far from city centers, which on average would be 10 to 40 kilometers away, creating a massive transport gap. For example, workers from Soweto needed to travel to Johannesburg's central business district daily, but the government provided minimal public transport. By the 1980s, entrepreneurial taxi operators began filling this gap with 8-seater vehicles, which eventually evolved into the 16-seater minibuses we see today. The taxi industry continues to dominate due to the failure of alternatives. Most government transport systems have deteriorated dramatically. For instance, Metrorail, which is a network of commuter rail services in the Gauteng province serving the Johannesburg and Pretoria metro areas, only had 34% of trains run on time in 2019. By 2022, entire lines like the Central Line in Cape Town had been non-operational for years due to cable theft, vandalism, and poor maintenance. Another example is the Part-Co buses. The company that once served millions have withdrawn from many routes due to financial difficulties, which continues to enable the taxi industry to capture a bigger market. The Gautrain, on the other hand, while modern and efficient, its high prices serve primarily middle and upper income commuters between limited destinations. Another factor to consider in why taxis continue to dominate is flexibility and reach. Taxis go where formal transport doesn't. They serve approximately 19,000 routes nationwide versus Metrorail's limited corridors. A commuter from Diepsloot can reach Sandton directly by taxi, while formal transport would require multiple connections. Taxis operate from 4 a.m. until midnight in many areas versus limited schedules of formal transport. The taxi industry has economic and political influence, which makes it a powerhouse, generating about 50 billion rand annually and employing about 300,000 people directly, including drivers, queue marshals, and washers. The taxi industry operates as a backbone that ensures most people have affordable transportation to school and work. The taxi industry has a serious political footing in that it can effectively paralyze entire cities through strikes. Let us look at an example on why your average South African would choose to take a taxi over an alternative form of transport. Let's follow Nomsa, a domestic worker from Khayelitsha to Sea Point in Cape Town, at 4:30 a.m. Nomsa leaves home to walk to the taxi rank. At 5 a.m., she boards the first taxi to Cape Town CBD for 25 Rand. At 5:45 a.m., she arrives at the CBD taxi rank and transfers to Sea Point taxi for 15 Rand. At 6:15 a.m., she arrives in Sea Point and walks 10 minutes to the employer's house. Her alternatives? A train would cost 10 Rand, but hasn't operated reliably on her line since 2019 due to vandalism. If she decides to take the MyCity bus, although this would cost 22 Rand total, it would require her to walk 25 minutes to the nearest station, which doesn't start operating until 5:30 a.m. Despite spending about 800 Rand monthly on taxi fare, almost 20% of a minimum wage salary, Nomsa chooses taxis because losing her job due to unreliable transport would be catastrophic. This scenario repeats millions of times daily across South Africa. But have you ever wondered why taxi drivers seem to drive so aggressively? Let's follow Mandla, a taxi driver on the Soweto-Johannesburg route, to understand the economics. At 4 a.m., Mandla collects the taxi from the owner. He must pay the owner a non-negotiable daily target of 1,000 to 1,200 Rand, regardless of how many passengers he transports. After collecting the taxi, his workday begins with having to cough up money for operational expenses. These include fuel, queue fees to the taxi associations, taxi rank cleaning fee, and also a taxi washer. All of this can amount to about 1,800 Rand per day. Mandla needs to make all this money back, and more so, he can pay his taxi owner and still have enough to buy bread, and the most sure way to meet target is by getting more customers. The speeding and reckless overtaking is a way to limit time and potential money wasted. Drivers like Mandla will also overload their taxis because an extra passenger is pure profit. This overall system creates conditions where drivers work under extreme pressure with no job security, benefits, or fixed salary. The taxi owners maximize profits by minimizing vehicle maintenance. Passengers bear the risks of this economic model, and government regulation attempts are resisted because they threaten this profitable structure. South Africa's minibus taxi industry isn't just transport. It's a complex system born from historical neglect, entrepreneurial spirit, and government failure. Despite their notorious reputation, taxis remain the backbone of South African mobility. The average South African economy would collapse overnight without them. The question isn't why do taxis dominate, but rather, how did we create a society so dependent on an informal transport system? Until government can provide a viable alternative that reaches as far, runs as often, and employs as many people as the taxi industry, the 16-seater minibus will continue to be the true public transport of South Africa. Next time you see a taxi swerving through traffic or hear short left from a sliding door, remember, you're witnessing a uniquely South African solution to a complex historical problem. If you would like me to make more videos exploring more South African related topics, please like and subscribe.